there. Yay, we're live. Hi, Shellen.
Hello.
Welcome, everyone. Super excited to do this. We've scheduled this, and we've got several people who are registered for it. So,
Yes, absolutely. And this is going to be a great conversation. And I guess I would put out to those of you watching, wondering, are you finding yourself really eating cleaner and watching the scale kind of creep up, especially those of us who have been around a few decades here and often, pushing workouts and, hit workouts, but feeling exhausted and not having that same kind of energy. I know there's a lot of conflicting advice out there, and women in particular are finding that as they're getting older, the strategies that worked in the past are really leaving them very frustrated. And it seems sometimes like everything's working against us. And I know, there's certainly a number of us just silently nodding in the background and can really relate to that. And, I'm Shellen Briand, and today I am joined by Dr. Cody Goldman. And you have had the opportunity to work with hundreds of ambitious women. That's how I learned about you, is actually from one of the most ambitious women I know. And you've really helped people find out why those traditional approaches that just start to stop working, especially after 40, especially those of us who kind of came up through the bagels or a healthy breakfast world. And it seems like there's really a new set of rules that are important to know. And today we're going to get to the 5 critical mistakes that keep driven women and really all of us, but that person here who's that ambitious woman that's stuck in that cycle of frustration. And you have some ways that really shift things, and you have that expertise of really honing in on working with high achieving women, the biochemistry of stress and hormonal changes. And your program, Fast 40, addresses that. And I really appreciate how your ability to work with women who have just tried everything. And I know, you can do the list of all the things that people are attempting. So happy to have this conversation. And, what I'd love to start out with is, when people are coming to you, those who are on LinkedIn and, who are professionals and trying to juggle everything, what are the typical experiences that they are sharing with you? What are, like, behind the scenes when they get that private one-on-one, what are the common themes of what you hear about?
yes. Well, great introduction. So I'm excited to do this for sure, because that is, at this point, I've worked with thousands of women. The hundreds have been just in the last 2 years. And so I'll give you an example. I met with a woman today who's a part of a network that we're a part of, the Brand Builders Group. And she was referred from someone who heard someone that would help her. She runs 4 companies. And this is my typical client, are very driven women. And the typical thing I'm seeing, a few things. Dr. Goldman, I exercise 3-4 days a week. I eat right, and the weight's not coming off. That's pretty common. And it's interesting because I find women continuing to try to do the same thing that's not working. Like, they're fighting for the thing they've been told. They've been told you've got to work out more and you've got to eat less. And it's funny because, like, the women on the call with me, I just ask, well, how's it working for you? And they go, it's not. And I'm like, then why are you still doing it? She's like, because that's all I know. And so one of the biggest things is that people may not know this, but our medical system is not trained to help you with weight loss. Matter of fact, our medical system, medical schools are not trained to help you with health. We're trained on disease. Now, I'm saying this is very important because I think it's a fantastic thing to be trained in disease and how, if you get sick, that's important. But health and weight loss are a different category. You can't inject away your weight. You can't starve yourself to health, right? So I'm seeing people who are exercising a lot. What they did in their 20s and 30s is not working anymore. And even a lot of the women I work with are like eating like meats and veggies and fruits. They're potentially eating correctly, but they're confused about a calorie deficit. So those are the biggest things I'm seeing is, and if we just might as well say, most of them have done Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, paleo, keto, the most recent fad, fasting. And now I've actually had many women, unfortunately, who are doing Ozempic and Wegovy, and we can chat more about that. So it's a really, I mean, it's $1 billion industry that is designed for women to not be successful so they can go back and keep spending money in that industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And how are you finding that they express how it's impacting their confidence, and both in their personal life, but for many in the LinkedIn community, they are really building their careers, they're building businesses, and this is impacting their confidence. And what kinds of things do they share with you in that realm?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So here's if one of the reasons that we are so successful is that I love to tap into someone's heart. And what I find is that really driven women tend to stay really busy and not feel the emotions that are really there. And so the 10, when it was 5 or 10 pounds, they just ignored that because they just kept moving forward. It's okay. Then it became 20 pounds and 30 pounds. There's a certain point where here's what I'm seeing. Most of the women basically have decided that as they get older, that fat is normal. Not correct. Not even biologically, anatomically correct. Age has nothing to do with your fat. It's the same misnomer about that disease comes with age. Nope. No anatomical reason for that either. So a lot of what I'm seeing is the excess weight is one of the biggest things that's affecting confidence. Most of the women I work with are very confident women, right? And so what happens is it's the confidence. Many of them are on stage as speakers, and they don't talk about it, but it's in the back of their mind, just sitting there like they're thinking about is someone looking at me right now, right? Some of these women are female coaches, right? And some of them tell me that they dread going to their closet because they're spending a ton of time to try to find an outfit that doesn't show the fat on their body. And that is a huge mental drain. So by the end of the day, a lot of these women are really drained. So that's confidence wise. Let me just get a little more intimate too, because one of the biggest things I'm seeing it's affecting is truly their confidence level in their relationship. And what I mean by that is most of the women I have really supportive husbands, but your husband, doesn't matter how much your husband or boyfriend or partner tells you you're beautiful if you don't feel it. And what I notice is the excess fat reduces intimacy and sex drive because they don't feel confident in their skin. So they start avoiding intimate conversations, avoiding being naked, which if you really just look at a relationship, it's one of the most powerful things in a relationship. So these are the things that women are not saying that I get to talk to in sort of closed doors.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that one of the things we chatted about in preparing for today was the kind of the invisible load that a lot of women carry and what's connecting to them, emotionally, physically, their sleep. How do you address that with those that you work with?
Yeah, like you mean so like having the excess weight, drains their energy. It does affect sleep. And so one of the first things that we really help women understand is that you can't, if your hormones are out of balance, you can't diet yourself back into hormonal balance. I've tried it. You can't work yourself in the gym back to hormonal balance. So it's one of the biggest areas I've seen that, the biggest impact is we actually decided, it was almost 15 years ago where I spent time to try to figure out how does a woman reset their hormones. And so just kind of what you're talking about here is just to understand is when you go through moments of stress, when you go through stress, your body will choose fat or sugar as a fuel source. And high levels of stress, which come with most productive women, but high levels of stress many times come with alcohol, sugar, and carbohydrates. That combination is what will reset your hormones. And we probably should back up to explain this is your brain and body use fat as its primary fuel source. So as a woman, when you burn fat, you are sharp, you're productive, you have better emotional balance as well. You have great energy. You don't have a crash at 1, 2, or 3 o'clock, and your sleep is fantastic. Most people don't realize that fat was pretty much the universe's best fuel source for a human. But when you go through stressors, there's two hormones called leptin and ghrelin that will switch, and your brain stops using fat and it starts using sugar. And that's important because you can find out whether or not you're a sugar burner very easily. Is how's your sleep? How's your energy? How's your emotional balance? And are you storing fat? And if you're storing fat, your body's not using it. If sleep is off, you're most likely burning sugar. Sugar basically becomes the most terrible fuel source. So that kind of guides that together.
I know that's a common conversation that I have with friends, is the impact of sleep. And the more that I learned about this, it was so interesting, that just the impact of sleep. But I know there's so much we can talk about, but I do want to kind of hone in on the biggest mistakes that people are making and what they can do instead. And one of the big mistakes that you shared was under eating, especially protein, and kind of over restricting.
Yeah. So what we're really talking about is calorie deficits. So the most women have been told, lied to, that you need to starve yourself to get healthy. And that's one of my big messages. You cannot starve yourself to health. Matter of fact, for someone listening to this, even when I say that, you don't need me to say that. You've already realized when you starve yourself, you lose some weight and it'll come right back, right? So let's a few other things let's back up to understand how your brain is wired. So there's a part of your brain it's in the amygdala and the hippocampus that is primitive. So you have an animal primitive part of yourself that's trying to help you survive. So when you go through periods of not eating, calorie deficit, or fasting, you will temporarily lose weight, but your brain goes, "Oh no, they're in a famine." And when you're in a famine, your body eventually stores fat. So what I'm watching is people doing these calorie deficits completely incorrectly, and then they gain more weight. So just recently, I'm putting up a video it's called "Fasting is Making You Fat." Because you got to understand, in my perspective, I've watched 20 years of these trends. Back when South Beach and keto and Atkins and all these things, they're trends. The fasting is a trend. It's not sustainable. And so it's important that people understand is, do you want to, do you want to jump on a trend or jump on understanding how your body works, right? Long term. Mm. So when you do too much calorie deficit, it actually causes fat storage. That's one of the biggest things that happens. And so when looking at calorie deficit, paleo calorie deficit, keto calorie deficit, so it's important to see that when you're eating enough of the right things, and so you've got experience with Shellen, is we make sure that our patients are eating enough and eating on time. So you will never hear one of our patients saying, "I lost 50 pounds and I starved myself." It's quite the opposite. We'll hear people saying, "Dr. Goleman, I lost 20 pounds and I was not hungry at all." And you'll see a little confusion in their face, because what's happening is they're approaching the false teaching of starving yourself, right? And as a little tip I want to give right here, if you starve yourself, aka fasting, rob yourself of calories, skip a meal, if you do this, your brain is going to do one thing for you. It's going to seek sugar. Your brain will seek sugar because it's trying to get you fuel. Sugar is the fast way for you to get fuel. So it's quite the opposite. You can see is if you fuel yourself enough and on time, you actually can stop the sugar cravings.
I think that on time element is something I hadn't ever really given a whole lot of thought to, of creating that routine. Why does that work so well, of having a schedule and really sticking to it?
That's good. There's a thing called, I'm also putting a series of videos out on YouTube on this, but no one's talking about this either. And listen, you will not see the things that are not popularized are the things that actually work, because the things that actually work are things you can control. The things that don't work are the things that you got to pay for. And
Mhm.
right. So this is what works. And it's worked from the eons of time. It's called chrononutrition. It is the science of mealtime eating. So understand that most women understand that they have hormones, but they don't realize those hormones are connected to a circadian rhythm. And so when you wake up in the morning, some people know that their circadian rhythm is launched by the sun. Okay. So cortisol and adrenaline, cortisol specifically, is released when your brain sees light. When it's light out, it'll release cortisol. Okay. But there's a second thing that releases cortisol to trigger your morning and your day. It's a little thing called food. So it's interesting because if you're not eating food in the morning, which most people are not eating, what happens is they're drinking coffee. Okay. And so what happens is they're screwed. The coffee is what's stimulating adrenal function, right? And so one of the big causes of hormone imbalances is not eating on time and not eating enough, and spiking your cortisol with coffee. So one of the big reasons for that whole timing thing is, I would say it like this: if you want to balance your hormones, start eating on time. There's no other way around that. And again, the reason you haven't heard this is because it doesn't make money for someone to tell you this, to tell you the truth. It's better just to say your hormones out of balance, come see me and I can give you some hormones.
Right. And it's very confusing and complicated when you go in to see doctors that you're supposed to be comfortable trusting their advice and realize that there just is so much conflicting advice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. One of the second mistakes people make is ignoring insulin's role in fat storage. And that isn't something that is commonly talked about. So can you share a little bit more about sort of insulin and that role in fat storage?
Yeah, there's I actually have whole trainings on YouTube on this, but let's many people have heard of insulin resistance. And so let me explain it through insulin resistance, right? So insulin resistance is basically when your cells stop responding well to the hormone insulin. So most people don't even think of insulin even as a hormone, right? And so insulin's main job is to help move sugar, or specifically glucose, from your blood into your cells so you can actually have energy, right? But when your cells resist insulin, it makes your body more and more insulin resistant, and it tries to force sugar in. So your blood sugar levels start to creep up. So most people don't realize this, but excess sugar gets stored as fat. But for women, and it's both women and men, but for women, it specifically stores around the belly. So when you have too much sugar in your system, you literally store fat in your belly. You also feel tired, inflamed, and it becomes very hard to lose weight. Now, it's important to understand how does this even cause, right? So a constant overload of processed carbs, sugar, and stress is what causes insulin resistance. Okay. So let's look at that. A processed carbs, chips, like bags of, pretty much, if it's in a bag, it's pretty much going to be processed. Now, sugar is put in everything. We could have a whole conversation about that.
Yeah.
But so it's processed carbs, sugars, and stress. These are things that the body was never designed to handle in large amounts over a long period of time. And what it does is this specifically disrupts your metabolism, and it also disrupts your hormones. So that's important to just understand that process of insulin resistance and what actually causes it.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And in terms of, I think another thing that many sort of ambitious women are doing and trying to make time for is, training and working out, and now lifting weights is, more and more discussed. But one of the mistakes people are making is overtraining without recovery. Can you dive into that a bit about how that impacts this journey of health and weight loss?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really, really simple one, but Simple to understand, but not what we've been told. So when you overwork out your body without basically having proper rest, and I see this a lot. And let's just not say going to the gym, but that's you mentally overworking out too. So you're mentally going, right? Not relaxing. One of the hormones that's released is your primary stress hormone, which is cortisol. Now, cortisol, it's not like an enemy. It's actually really good in small amounts, but when it's chronically high from overtraining or staying in overstimulating moments in your life, your body stores fat around the belly. And the reason it does that is it thinks you're in danger. So you have to understand ancestrally, right? If you were being attacked for 2 weeks straight, you want that cortisol high because you want to fight. But because you want to fight, your body is going to store fat because fat is your best fuel source for fighting. So this is why the overworking out has the complete opposite effect. I mean, honestly, 90% of women that come to me are working out a ton, and they're following the trainer's advice and all that, but the trainer doesn't understand their hormones either. And they're just making them, basically go into fight or flight mode. The second thing is it actually slows your metabolism down, because what your brain thinks is, I'm being starved, I'm being hunted. Just really feel into that. Like, I'm being starved, I'm getting less fuel, and I'm being hunted. So you're gonna actually burn less fat. And on top of that, you end up craving more sugar. So it's quite frustrating, because when you're working out a ton, you will notice you're starving yourself, and you'll be like, all you want to do is, like, I used to be a bodybuilder. All I wanted to do was eat a freaking piece of pizza. I would die to have a piece of pizza. Right. So, right. So there's many solutions to this, but that'll give you the basis of how that doesn't work.
I think that concept of the mental stress and the mental working out is one that I don't hear. It isn't something that I think many people are talking about, is how that actually, I think we talk about stress, but not necessarily the other ways of just thinking and the way that uses energy. Do you have any other advice in that? Most people here are, they've got their work, their home life, they're working, they're achieving, many learners, they are using a lot of energy and thinking and processing. What kind of discussions do you have around that?
Yeah, this is very interesting. And honestly, a lot of the things, most of the things that I do with my patients, I didn't learn in some kind of, school. Like, I learned from actually doing this with people. So this is not like, oh, we have some research to back this up. There is research, but the research has come after I've been doing it, right? So, so think about this. So your brain is about 2% of your body's weight, but it consumes 20% of the body's total energy.
Amazing.
Yeah, so this is really important to understand. Yeah. There's a bunch of books about this, but and there's actually been recent studies that are coming out that even at rest. So what happens is this high demand. This is the conversation we have: is most people are completely ignoring the physical. Like, they think that if they walk 5 miles or 10 miles, they don't realize they actually need to eat more food with 10 miles. That seems obvious, but it's because we've never been trained on how to do this. We've never been truly shown. So walking 1 mile takes a few calories. Walking 10 miles takes more. So you need to actually eat more so you don't create that famine mode.
Mm-hmm.
So you burn energy physically, then you burn energy mentally. So now we understand your brain. There are a few studies that I'm digging further into that show that there are moments where your brain can actually burn more than your body. So we've known that your brain burns 20% of your glycogen. So the thing that weighs 2% of your body weight can burn 20%. So you could sit at your desk and physically not do anything and have a very strong, powerful mental day and be very busy mentally. And most people, when they do, don't stop to eat. So you could trigger survival mode from just running your brain, past it where it needs to go. The third way I see that energy is burned, and this is not in any studies, is emotions. I mean, it would be very easy to study this, but no one wants to, because it's like that we'd find the cause of things. But if you've ever been angry, and you hook yourself up to a calorie meter, you'd burn your calories 3 or 4 times faster than if you're patient. So
Yes.
you have emotions. But think about people who are like considering getting a divorce, and they've been considering it for 15 years. Fight or flight,
Yeah.
right? Think about people who are like, oh, I hate my job, but I don't want to leave. What's the impact of that of caloric burn? And the fourth one, I won't talk about much, but I call it the spiritual burn. And there's going to be 0 studies on this ever. But it is your energetic being operating inside your body has an actual caloric impact on there. So there's a whole conversation around that.
Well, and we'll make a point to drop the links to a few of your trainings on YouTube, because these topics are so interesting and it's hard to just give an overview, but you have some wonderful trainings that dive much deeper. I'd like to, before we go into the last of the mistakes, maybe you could just paint a picture from a couple of the people that you've worked with that were achievers. They were striving. They're, trying to do everything right. They've reached out to you because they don't have the quality in their life that they're looking for, and what life looks like after they get their hormones, in an optimized place, and they start, using this advice and getting rid of these 5 mistakes. What does that sort of before and after look like?
Yeah, I'd really love to tap into the emotion of this, and get out of our mind with this question, get out of my mind, because there's no amount of logic that can explain to you what it feels like to get 20, 30 pounds off your body. This can only be an emotional thing. Here's what I hear. What I hear is, Dr. Goleman, my sleep is so much better. I'm like, that's great. How's it impacting you? Oh my gosh, like, Dr. Goleman, my arthritis is gone. I have people who literally have complete conditions. These people were diagnosed from their doctor with these conditions are completely gone. My arthritis is gone. And guess what happens when you can sleep? Your body repairs itself. I have hundreds of people by day. I'm thinking 7, 8, or 9, or 10. Dr. Goleman, I'm on blood pressure pills, but my blood pressure is like 100 over 90 or whatever it is, or 70, whatever. Their blood pressure starts dropping because you cannot patch up symptoms with the medication. When you actually start fixing the cause of the problem, you see your blood pressure start to bounce. So chronic disease goes away. And I will say this too. This is a whole other conversation, but we talked about blood sugar and insulin. The more blood sugar spikes you have, the faster you age. So I'm not kidding when I say this. Clearer skin, less wrinkles, better ability to build muscles, better ability to manage emotions. And so you start seeing the impact of all this in someone's business, in someone's personal life, in someone's family. And then I got to say this over anything is most of the women that come see me feel like they're inside a body that's not who they are. And that's a very personal thing, is they feel like I know who I am as a person, but I'm not in this body. People aren't seeing who I really am. And so for you to really fit in a body that's lean and that's not fat. Fat is not a body type. That's something we start to in COVID, it started becoming sort of a body type. No, your excess fat is killing you. It has nothing to do with loving your fat. Don't love your fat, love your body. Right? And so we don't need to live in a survival mode. We're not in an apocalypse. We really have never been in an apocalypse, at least in this country, is like, come on. Yeah. And so getting out, the root of this question is, I watch women get out of survival and get into thrival. And that's what we really see.
Yeah. I hear a lot of conversation around, younger, you can grind it out as you have less responsibilities. You can just pour the time and grind, and just over time that stops working, particularly when you layer other responsibilities and wanting quality of life and being able to tap into that, new levels of energy and vitality is such a changer. So that kind of goes back to this next mistake of mistake number 4, which is using artificial energy to push through fatigue. And the energy drinks, the coffees, the in the evening, often it's like, well, that glass of wine, on both sides of the day. How would you, how do you talk about that artificial energy and the impacts?
Well, so what we're really talking about here is many women think that when they turn 40 or we're around there, that it's normal to start getting a little more tired, and it's normal to start kind of getting a little more heavy, and it's not the case. It's the impacts of stress, as we talked about, which build up the weight on you. And what happens is when you're walking with 20-30 pounds around, it literally weighs you down. And so as that starts to come off, I'll start watching, as someone's sleep improves, their the cells and tissues repair. And when something just to kind of look at when this conversation is, when you're sleeping at night, your body will basically go through a hierarchy of repairing. And so fat loss is one of the last things it's going to do. It wants to repair your brain. It wants to repair your heart and vital organs and tissues, right? So what happens is if someone's only getting partial sleep, right, it'll only repair those certain things, right? So when looking at the lack of sleep and then trying to actually sort of reach those goals, what I'll watch is the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems is overdriven. So in other words, all of us have two states. So a sympathetic is where you're on and you're creating your life. Parasympathetic is where you stop and your body rebuilds itself. So understand is that when you're talking about with the sort of pushing and going and over and not listening to your body, what you're doing is you're overriding parasympathetic and trying to be all sympathetic, okay? When you are in a sympathetic mode, when you're building your business, when you're building your relationship, you're destroying your body. This is part of the duality of life. When you stop and rest your body and you build your body, your life destroys. This is a part of the balance. Okay? So you have to have both. So, I mean, I think probably even listen to this, many people have experienced moments I have where I've built something and I'm just so focused on it and never stopped to listen. And all of a sudden, boom, I realize, oh my God, my health is gone. Yeah. And so you have to have these moments of going back and forth. And let me weave all this together. When you are a sugar burner, you are operating on the fuel source that gives you half the energy. Literally, fat has 9 calories per gram. So a fat burner literally has more than double the energy than a sugar burner. It's not even the same playing field. So as a sugar burner, you have to push over those times that you're tired. The lady I talked with today, she starts at 7 and she gets tired by 1 o'clock and she goes, "Isn't that normal?" I'm like, 1 o'clock is halfway through your day. What do you do? Is that normal? Right? And so it's normal if you're a sugar burner. And then you're right. What happens is then we have the energy drinks that happen. Many of the women that start my program have energy drinks and caffeine. And that's a whole other conversation. But again, you were designed to have an incredible amount of energy, fat burning energy. You're also designed to have incredible sleep. You weren't designed to turn 30, 40, or 50 and start having your health go downhill and get tired. That's not the way you're designed, even though the male-driven healthcare system would like you women to think that.
Yeah, it is quite overwhelming, to think about that and to know what to do with that. So I think one of the elements of, I guess, back to kind of mistake number 5 is approaching sort of those midlife changes that are happening with outdated strategies and relying on either the medical system, outdated information, like you had said, kind of focusing on disease or changes versus health. So what are the outdated strategies? And as people do enter this, part of life where hormones are changing anyway, like, what advice do you have that is maybe different from what people are hearing out in the mainstream?
Yeah, let's lay this down and this is going to be probably very shocking, I think, for most people. Let's lay a few principles down that have been principles long before we probably were even born about the body. So principle number 1, let's call it. Your body was designed to be healthy. It is not at the detriment of some poison, toxin, or virus on the outside. This is a education or a training that's been given to people. Your body is striving for health. It's not striving for disease. That is the first principle that our entire healthcare system violates, that one principle. Okay. So let's give another principle. Your genes don't control your health. Stop worrying about if your mom had fucking cancer. Sorry, I don't mean to curse here, but I kind of mean to. There has been studies for 30, 40 years. Some of the leading cellular biologists proved that genes don't cause you to get sick. It's not true. Genes are like a key to your car. Wouldn't it be funny if I left my keys in my car and I sat here and I was really worried about my car being taken away because my keys were going to drive it away? That's what genes are. Genes are keys. You have to take the key and turn it. So if you have a gene for obesity, you got to take that key and turn it. And turning it means you got to do the same things your parents did. Genes don't control your health. So that's a huge one. Let's give another one. These are ones that people are like, we could just spend a few hours on each one of these.
Right.
Here's another one. Hormones are not the cause of your problem. Your body is not a cause. Your body is an effect. That is completely violated by every freaking doctor's visit we have. Just about everyone. Because when you go to the doctor, they ask you, hey, what's your history? They're asking you the bullshit that we already know that doesn't matter. Your history of your genes don't matter. And then they start doing hormone panels and you go, oh, my hormones are off. Right. But your hormones, listen to this, your hormones are messengers, not causes. Your symptoms are messages. So if you're listening to this as a woman, your hormones are messengers, your symptoms are messages. That's such an important thing. Think about this. If I take my car to the mechanic because my check engine light came on, I go, oh my gosh, there's a symptom, check engine light. And I go to the mechanic and the mechanic goes, ooh, man, Dr. Goleman, you got this looks bad. I'm like, really? What's wrong with it? You have a bad case of check enginitis. Well, what is that? Man, that's really bad. It's where your check engine light is inflamed. And I go, wow, this is a great mechanic. He's explained to me the problem. No, he's explained to me the symptom. He didn't explain the problem. And I go, well, what do I do about this check enginitis? He goes, I can take care of this. Let's put a piece of black tape right over that check engine light so you can't see it. So he does it, and I drive away and I go, that's an incredible doctor. He is so intelligent, and he really dialed in. But then in a few months, I'm driving up a mountain in Colorado here, and my car dies. And I go, what the heck happened? I thought I took care of this problem, right? So understand that check engine light is what symptoms are in your body. Fatigue, arthritis, joint pains, menstrual cramps. These are wisdom symptoms from your body. You haven't been shown how to listen to your symptoms. Symptoms are the messages. Your hormones are messengers. Your hormones are sending you signals. And to keep this simple, I've watched many women override their signals. Your body is your friend. It's not this thing that's trying to work against you. I've watched women stay in uninspiring relationships, stay in uninspiring jobs, and keep doing the thing that they want to do, and their body's giving them signals. Listen to the wisdom of your body. So I think those are 3 principles we could go with.
That's so important. And I think another area that we hear a lot about is willpower, and often people feeling shame around the struggle. Why, I can run a company, I can lead a team, I can, crush my goals, but I can't get this under control. It's a willpower problem. Why do you advise that is not the situation?
Yeah. Well, number one, let's see how I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. willpower, most of the women I work with they have no lack of willpower. And willpower means nothing when you haven't been shown the truth. And I think it's a bit sad that women are being told to eat less and work out more. And they already know it's not working, but they don't give another solution. And so it doesn't matter how much you continue trying to do the same thing, it's not working. You have to change what you've been doing. And so all the messaging of all of this truly is, I don't think that if a woman has extra weight and she's tired and exhausted, I don't think she ever had a problem with willpower. She just was never shown the right way to function. And I want to blame our healthcare system directly. From the time you are born, you watch every commercial on TV tell you that your body doesn't have what it needs. You need to get a bottle and you need to inject yourself. This has been programmed into you. There's almost $10 million a month spent on drug advertisement. Now, I've done this for a long time. Like, there are big benefits of us having emergency care. Do you know there was a Surgeon General in the 1970s, Everett C. Koop. This was his quote. He said, "We've been very successful at getting sick people our drugs," which was, thank God. My God, thank God we have an emergency system. I love that system. Oh my God, that's where drugs are pretty damn good. But Everett C. Koop, after he retired, he said, but our goal was to now get healthy people on drugs. You guys can look this up. I'm not making this up. Go look up Everett C. Koop, former Surgeon General. So the entire process was, how can we've got a good business around sick people. How can we now take healthy people and get them on drugs? And that's the one thing that did that was, let's now tell people that their symptoms need a drug instead of listening to your body. What would happen if you went into your doctor and you said, "Hey doc, I've got 10 pounds of fat, 20 pounds of fat." And the doctor said, "Well, tell me, what have you been eating? What kind of stressors are going on in your life?" You don't even talk to your doctor anymore. Your doctor has no freaking idea what's going on in your life. How the heck can he give you a diagnosis? So people now must become vigilant and listen to their body. And that's what happens by the end of our program is women get to learn to listen to themselves. And for the last 20 years, even in my chiropractic office, I encouraged people to listen to the infinite intelligence inside you and not to the man in the white lab coat.
And what do you, when that's happened and people, what have people, when they've really leaned into that and taken that to heart, what do they express is different?
Say it again. What do they express as different?
Yeah, like when they've really taken your advice to heart and really listen to themselves and that wisdom, how is that different? Their experience? How do they describe what that's like when they've successfully been able to accomplish it?
Yeah, well, I'll give you some very simple examples. Dr. Goleman, it's really interesting. I noticed that I can feel I'm hungry before I get angry. And they go, yes. Mm-hmm. If you're starving and you're hangry, what people call hangry, you haven't listened to your wisdom. You've gone past your wisdom. Just today I had someone go, how do I find that threshold of hangry? You stop and listen, tuning into yourself. Especially as a woman, you have such strong inner intuition. And I want to say this again, in a male-driven healthcare system, right? You're not taught that. Matter of fact, you're taught that you gotta override your hormones. Don't listen to them. Oh, it must be that time of the month. Listen to yourself. So many women can tune into their menstrual cycle and they start judging themselves for being the time of the month. Guess what? Your body is beautifully going through hormonal shifts and it's asking for more food. So I've made women go judge their hunger during their menstrual cycle. Do you realize that your body's trying to prepare to build another human being? Don't you think you should have some more food? No one's taught that, right? But no doctor's going to tell you that. I'm telling you that because for whatever reason, life chose me to start actually shifting this paradigm and getting women to tap into their intuition. So they understand when they're hungry. They understand when they should be going to bed. Your body tells you when you're going to bed. This is just overridden, right? I have many women who don't want to face it, but they've had gut bacteria imbalances and digestive issues, and they have not listened to their gut. And they ask me, how can I fix my gut bacteria? Listen to your freaking gut. That's how, right?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned going into the doctor, and one of the things that has become such a rage right now is all the shots, right? The Ozempics and now there's, in the pipeline, several that are pill based so that it's easier for people that don't want the shot. So it's just exploding. What's your philosophies around when it might be appropriate for this, but really what's the dangers and the damage that is happening when people are taking it for weight loss, just sort of across the country?
Good question. I want to acknowledge one of our comments. Jeff Bailey said, I love this content and I'm a dude. Yeah. And I would say this to Jeff, the reason I decided to work with women is because women tune in quicker to their pain than men do. And so if I can work with women, I can get to the men. that's what happened, right? So anyway, let's talk about the GLP-1, the injections. So I think most people understand that this was a diabetic treatment. Okay. And so what they found was, people lose weight too. That's cool. And so literally if I explained this to you guys would vomit if you understood what really happens with these medications. I don't mean just GLP-1s. I mean, how this even gets put into our system. But it was never based on someone's health. There'll be someone that finds an opportunity that says, holy cow, weight loss, this could be a $1 billion maker. Let's actually just push this through. Now, what is the largest contributor, Shellen? What's the largest contributor financially to the FDA? Who?
Pharmaceutical companies.
Now, wait a minute. The FDA is responsible for regulating our drugs and telling us what's good for us. But wait a minute, I'm confused. The pharmaceutical industry, 70% of funding for the FDA comes from pharmaceuticals. If you think that the FDA is putting drugs in the market that are good for you, you're pitifully deluded. It has nothing to do with your health at all. Now, these are facts. Like, you guys can look this up, okay? But so with the recent injection, it was a company that said, hey, we can really make a lot of money off of this, okay? And so let me give you the facts of this. Anything that influences your hormones like this is going to be, number one, temporary, but number two, it's going to screw up your hormones. That's what we're seeing. There was a injection about 10, 15 years ago called HCG. It's a pregnancy hormone. It reminds me a lot like this. It's not the same thing, but oh my gosh, it was like inject this into, I don't know if you remember the Shellen, inject it into women and you just lose weight. There was one big problem with it. Do you know what the problem was?
I don't remember.
It caused cancer.
Cancer.
So the FDA banned it, and then they unban it, and then they ban it again and unban it because their biggest supporter, the pharmaceutical industry, needs this on the market. Okay. So same thing's happening here. What will happen? I'm going to tell you guys I'm probably going to get shot after this. I'm totally cool with that. Fine. You'll know why, because I told you the truth, right? It is cheaper to pay off medical lawsuits than to take the drug off the market. That's the truth. I have patients who are lawyers who are telling me there has been 1,200 lawsuits just in the last month for these injections. Okay. So what happens is the GLP-1, it influences your ability to understand when you're hungry. So you basically can't tell when you're hungry. So you undereat. Cool. I lose weight. Well, you end up losing muscle. You do end up losing some fat, but you'll trigger fat storage. And then people end up eating whatever they want. Now, let me tell you what the long-term effect is. It's just starting to come out now. The long-term side effect of this for women is osteoporosis because you are malnourished. So I'm not interested in getting someone thin and sick. I want you healthy. You cannot be taking something to make you lose muscle. And that's what happens. So people are taking this long term. And the other thing is that once you stop taking it, your hormones have to now re-engage with what they were doing before. So I have conversations with women and men. Dr. Goleman, I'd like to do your program. I just got off Ozempic. Then why are you doing my program? Because the weight came all back on. So it's a temporary solution that you're malnourishing yourself. Gallbladder is being removed, kidney destroyed. And I'm going to give you another little secret. My sister is an ER nurse, and she's worked also in the gastrointestinal clinics. They had to add a question. When you go in for colonoscopies, they had to add a question. Are you on the GLP-1 injections? Why they add that? Because they're finding undigested food in people's intestines, and they couldn't figure out why.
Wow.
And that food being undigested is that injection tricking you into thinking that you are not hungry. The food's just sitting there. Because it cuts off blood supply to your intestines, you eventually have something called ischemic bowel. Whenever you don't get blood supply to an organ, it's a really bad thing. It starts to die. So we're literally cutting off blood supply to your intestine, to your gut. So listen to this. We're now cutting off the blood supply to your internal gut, which people call have a gut feeling. We're cutting that off. If I haven't said enough on this. So yeah.
I was around a bunch of teen girls earlier in the week, and they were talking last week, and they were talking about, oh, we'll just take a shot, and kind of joking about, well, we could just take a shot. And I'd never heard that before. And it's just become so mainstream. That's frightening to hear those impacts.
Yeah. There's so many people coming out and saying what's happening to them now. And
So many listeners they really are very busy. That woman 40 and over who's a professional, there's just so much going on. Sometimes it's the start and stop of different programs and what they intend to do versus what happens day to day. How would you recommend somebody approach this? If this is kind of the line in the sand and they want to do things differently, they certainly could look at your program and, make a call and have that conversation. But let's say what's the mindset if they were going to do something on their own, they're going to plug into to Fast 40. What would be the way to think about it and to just start one step at a time? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so because it is a pretty big shift. So first things first, if you're doing something that's not working, don't keep doing it. So I have people that fast, they lose weight, and it comes right back. So stop doing that. If you're working out a bunch and not seeing results, stop doing it. Change this. One of the biggest things I've seen is that so many people have done so many things to lose weight that they just have become completely untrustworthy. And I get it. Okay. So this is what I would say is no matter what you decide to do, make sure that it does these three things. These are the three things I'd recommend no matter what you do. If you decide to talk to a nutritionist, dietitian, if you decide to join a program, ask them, can you do these three things? One, can you reset my metabolism? We don't need you to reduce your metabolism. I need you to reset it and re-engage with your metabolism. Fasting doesn't do that. Paleo doesn't do that. Keto doesn't do that. Matter of fact, the injections, it does the opposite. So number one, you should make sure that whatever you do resets your metabolism. Number two, make sure that the weight that you are going to lose is actually fat and you learn the right way long-term to lose fat. I do not care about temporary results. Sometimes temporary results, it's like a tiny relief, but it's like putting a Band-Aid over it. Stop starving yourself to lose weight. So the second thing you must make sure you know is that you actually learn how to burn fat long-term instead of storing it.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, that's not happening when you starve yourself or when you overwork out. You're not learning the right way. The third biggest thing, I think this would be powerful. No matter what you decide to do in terms of your weight loss, ask whoever you're talking to, can you help me reset my hormones? If you're not resetting your hormones, you're never going to have permanent results because you're right now, the reason the whole idea of exercising and working out all this stuff works really well when your hormones are balanced to burn fat. If your hormones are out of balance and you're a sugar burner, you are wasting thousands of dollars. I have people that come to me who spend over $30,000 on lap bands, surgical procedures, and all the weight loss programs. And they literally have the weight come all back. So I want to really think in terms of this. Am I patching up symptoms, or am I actually learning a long-term strategy? And you already can feel right into an injection. Is this a long-term strategy? You can feel into, should I starve myself long-term? Right? And you go back and listen to this conversation. The stuff that I'm saying in here, it is so shocking. And the reason people's brains have a hard time with it is because you've literally been programmed like this for 30, 40 years to do the wrong thing that you already know is not working. So drop into your heart and go, what I'm doing working? And am I going to keep, if it's not, am I going to keep doing the same thing over and over again to try to get the same, a result?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I appreciate what you said earlier is, our body's our friend. It's not betraying us. It's communicating. And in some cases, screaming at us, trying to get our attention. And, learning these three major elements to any program, any approach forward, and then really avoiding those mistakes can make such a huge difference. And Dr. Goleman, I really appreciate this conversation today. It seems to be really in the forefront, and there's so many incredible people that want, to have thriving professional lives, but also just healthy and happy and really enjoying life. And this is such a key to accomplishing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been so fun. I've actually really loved, I don't know how I've even gotten this track, but I've loved working with women. I've loved helping them. I've actually started diving so far into hormones, and there was a great book that I read that by a woman, and it's been interesting because what I found was women have been manipulated by the healthcare paradigm for a long time. Everything from birth control to injections. And so I feel like one of the things I'm being called to is becoming a strong force for truth from the masculine to really create structure that actually works. And we're doing it.
I love it. And for those who don't already follow you, learn from you, how can they best tap into your knowledge and connect with you if they are interested in learning more?
So fast40weightloss.com will go through the science of everything I've talked to you about. I actually have video trainings and even books that you can actually, if you want to study more of this, but it's all laid out there for you. And they even have a link on there if you want to book a call. And we don't accept everyone to our program. We do one-on-one calls with people because, I really want to make sure it's the right fit. And if it doesn't work for you, I won't even bring you into the program. Because I got a great reputation. I don't want to ruin it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And I'll look forward to our next conversation.
Sounds good. Thank you for doing this with me.
You bet.